Hey everyone. Handling lye in soap making can be one of the big hurdles to people even getting started in soap making because it's a chemical and they just don't know how to handle that, but they also don't know like what's the level of danger, like what do I need to manage, how do I even know that I'm doing this right. We're going to talk about that today. I have 8 tips for you in 8 tips, 8 things that you can know so that you will know that you are handling the lye correctly and that you're going to have the best case possible of having it do exactly what you want it to do in your soap making. Let's chat about it. The first tip in learning to handle lye correctly and safely is learning what's the safety gear you're going to need to have. Lye is caustic. That means that it will burn you if it touches you. That means in the powdered form, in the liquid form, when you've got it in your milk or your water, and also in the soap batter, when the soap batter is still pourable or still a liquid, still soft. All of that, the lye is still active, and we need to make sure we've got our safety things in place. So let's talk about what that is. Any exposed skin, best case scenario, should be covered. So you're going to want some gloves, and these are not like latex exam gloves. I am not comfortable using those kinds of gloves. I feel like I can still feel the lye right through those. So these are the kind of gloves that you would get from the hardware section of the store. I don't like dishwashing gloves, and it kind of depends on how they're designed. But I've had some that I've gotten from like the dish soap aisle that have a big cuff on them, a big cuff up here, and when you're working with chemicals, that cuff tends to go bloop, and then all this skin is exposed. So you're going to want to make sure you've got gloves that will cover your hands, part of your arms. You may even want to wear long sleeves just to make sure all of that skin is covered. You are going to need goggles. Now these goggles are great for me because I have glasses and they just cover my glasses. I can still see what I'm doing because I still have my glasses on, but the goggles just give me a little bit more protection, a little bit more wraparound to keep any splashing or anything that's going on out of my eyes. Now, if you don't wear glasses, these are a great option. They are just safety goggles, but they have a little foam ring on the inside, and that fits right up against your face so that it again, additional protection to keep any splashing out of your eyes. Now, I also add a dust mask when I am pouring the lye. I realized that I could smell it when I was pouring it initially, and I don't want to inhale the lye. So I add this just for one part of the process when I'm pouring the powdered lye into, well, either into whatever your container is, however you're going to measure it, but also when you're pouring that into the liquid, I wear a dust mask just to keep any powder, anything that any smell out, so I'm not breathing that in. So those are our safety gear things that you need to have. Just remember that anywhere the lye would touch you would burn, and you want to keep as much skin covered as possible, as much protection for yourself as you're working with the lye as possible. Tip number 2 is to measure your liquid and your lye into separate containers. Especially when you are first getting started with soap making, if you have your liquid in one container and then you're trying to pour the lye in straight out of the container, that can add some additional anxiety because you need to hit it, you need to get it exact. Measuring that lye has to be exact. But that just adds some additional stress. So measure your liquid into one container. Measure your lye into a second container so you know you've got exactly the right amount. And then when it's time to combine them, you can slowly pour from one to the other, and you know you're not going to overshoot because you already measured the lye. You know you've got exactly the right amount. Now make sure whatever your liquid, the lye that you're using, make sure you always pour your lye into the liquid and not the other way around. We want to control this as much as we can, and pouring the lye into the liquid, you're just adding it a little bit at a time. If you add it the other way, this can get very active, and that can be a problem. So just make sure you're always pouring the lye into your liquid and you've got them measured in separate containers to keep that process as under control, and so that you don't have to worry about overshooting. You've got it all under control and you're going to be in good shape. The third tip is, as you are getting ready to make soap, as you're getting ready to mix your lye, you need to manage your distractions. Think about all the things in your home that could be a distraction. At this point, you're going to need to focus on what you're doing. So manage your distractions. There's a couple obvious ones. You're going to want to make sure any children are not going to all of a sudden show up in your soap making area. You don't want them accidentally contacting the lye. You don't want them distracting you. You don't want them running through and knocking something over. So make sure children are somewhere else. Make sure your pets are not able to come in and cause chaos. I don't know about you, but a cat jumping up onto the counter would be, that just introduces a whole nother realm of thought, and we need to manage those distractions. Now, another thing to think about is what else is going on in your home. You're going to need to focus. So you might want to shut off the TV, turn off the other things that are making sound, or other things that might distract you. Make sure that you can focus on what you're doing, you're thinking clearly, and you don't have a lot of other things distracting you. But just so that you can make sure that you're paying attention to what's going on, and we don't have all these other variables around there. Keep your focus on what you're doing, and that will really serve you well in this process. The fourth tip is to think about what you're wearing while you are doing your soap making. I would not make soap in this shirt. This is too nice of a shirt. I would want to make sure I'm wearing something I don't care about, or I've got an apron on, or something else. But you also want to be careful, because some pieces of clothing have things on the front that can cause unexpected outcomes. For example, I would be very careful wearing a hoodie sweatshirt, because there's that pocket right here, and as you're turning, if you catch the handle of a pitcher or something else, you can end up with whatever you're doing all over the floor. And when you're dealing with lye, you want to make sure that isn't a possibility. So make sure you're not wearing something that can catch, or it's crazy what can happen. I would wear as plain and straight of clothing as you can, to just eliminate that possibility from being there as well. So be careful what you're wearing, not only for the safety of catching handles and stuff, but also because if you get any on you, it can mess with the color, and you want to make sure you're not jeopardizing clothing that you care about too much. So watch what you're wearing when you're working with your soap stuff. Fifth tip is to just take a moment to think through your process. If you have a recipe you're following, read through the recipe. Get all your things on the counter with you, so that you know you've got everything ready to go, and think through the process. Maybe you even put your equipment and your tools and things in order of how you're going to need them. But spend a minute to just think, okay, what am I going to do first? Then what? Then what? That gives you a chance to prepare, so you're not surprised. Maybe you're not, oh, my soap batter's thickening and now I forgot my mold or something. Just take a minute to prepare and to think through that. That will make sure you've got all your stuff together, so that you can move through the process in an organized fashion and not be scrambling to try to find other things. When you're scrambling, you tend to get careless, and that's when accidents can happen. We want to prepare as much as possible to keep that from happening. The sixth tip is to work slowly and deliberately, especially if it's your first time working with lye or working with soap batter. Be very deliberate. You've got all your things laid out, you've prepared, you've thought it through. Now move through the process slowly and deliberately. Even take a moment to think, okay, if I need to turn around to my sink, I'm going to be very intentional. I'm going to move slowly and make sure that I get there safely, and we're not knocking things over in the process. If you are feeling anxious about the soap making, or if this is your first time and you're not sure how it's going to go, just taking that moment to take a breath, stay calm, and just to say, I'm going to move slowly, and whatever happens, that's fine, but I'm going to move slowly to make sure that I'm not spilling, that I'm not knocking things over, that I'm being very intentional about where I put the dirty dishes. Just taking that moment to tell yourself move slowly can do so much for your safety as far as working with the lye and the soap batter and all the things. Just move slowly and intentionally, and you will avoid a lot of the mishaps that can cause anxiety and no, now what I'm going to do. You can avoid them before they ever happen. Tip number 7, the lye needs to be respected no matter what form it's in. Remember, we talked lye is caustic. It will burn you in its powdered form, in the liquid form when you have it mixed with your milk or your water. In the soap batter form, it will still burn. So if you get some soap batter on you, you're going to need to turn and wash that off right away. Anytime you have any kind of lye contact, whether it's with the powder, the liquid, or the soap batter, turn, rinse it with cool water, and treat it just like a burn. If you do that right away, like abandon what you're doing, turn around, get it rinsed off, it won't even leave a mark. You just need to handle it right away. Lye needs to be respected all the way through the process. So you've got your safety stuff on when you're measuring the lye, when you're mixing it with its liquid, when you're adding the liquid to the oils and you're stick blending the soap batter. You are still respecting it when you're working with any scent and color and the batter is still liquid. When you're pouring those together into the mold, you're still respecting it. And even when you're forming the top, make sure that you've still got your safety stuff on. You've still got your goggles, your gloves. You don't need the dust mask is only for when you're pouring the powdered lye, so you don't need that all the way through. But make sure that you're still respecting that lye. You're still aware of it. I know there are some times where I'm forming the top of our soap and I can't do it with the gloves on. So I will remove my gloves sometimes, but I am very aware of making sure I'm keeping my fingers out of it. And if I touch the soap batter ever, to make sure that I handle that right away. You also need to respect the lye when you are doing the dishes for your soap making. That lye is still active. That soap batter is still liquid now in your sink. I wash dishes in an open sink. I take my gloved hands and knock out any like under running water, knock out any soap batter that's left, and then take a dish rag with just a little bit of dish soap and wash the bowl, rinse it, and set it in the draining rack, all with my gloves still on. That lye is still active in your dishwater, and you don't want to be soaking your ungloved hands in a sink full of that, and you don't want to be washing it with an open sink and still contacting it that way. So keep your gloves on all the way through the dishwashing part of that. You just need to remember that as long as the lye is a liquid in the soap batter, in the dishwater, whatever, it's still active, and we just need to respect it. Now, do we need to fear it? No. If you're following all the tips that I've given you in this video, you don't need to fear it, but it does demand respect, and it does demand that you keep these things in mind as you are working through the whole of your soap making process, even up to washing the dishes at the end. Tip number 8, the question that people always ask at the end is, how do I know that I did it right? How do I know I put lye in this soap? I measured super carefully. How do I know that it worked? How do I know that the chemistry happened and there isn't lye left to burn me or my kids or whoever I'm giving the soap to? How do I know that it worked? So tip number 8 is you're going to want to be able to pH test your soap bars when they're done. Now, the lye this is a little soap scrap we're going to test here in just a second. But when you pour the lye and the soap batter is still soft, like we said, that lye is still active. And the lye oil reaction is still happening for a period of time. So for the first week, so let's say you pour your soaps, you unmold them after 2 days, you cut them, and the bars are sitting out curing. For the first week of that cure time, your soaps are going to test a little hot. So don't let that panic you at all. Don't let that worry you, because that reaction is still completing. It's after the first week and beyond that you can test your soaps and see if they test at neutral or not. You're going to need these testing strips, and these are called universal indicator paper, and you need to make sure that they will test the pH from 1 to 14. Don't get the ones for testing your swimming pool. These are the ones that will test all the full spectrum of the pH. So get one of these little papers out, and you're also going to need the colors, the key, because whatever color this paper turns will tell you the pH of your soap. So now take a little scrap of the soap that you made, and you need to get it wet. So I have a little cup with some water here. I'm going to get my soap scrap wet, and then we're going to push the testing paper into that wet spot. And my testing paper has turned kind of olive green. And if you look on the little scope, the little key here, that color is right about at a 9. Not quite a 10, it's not that dark, so it's right about at a 9. And that's where all of our soaps test generally. 7 is neutral, so 9 is very close to neutral. It's also very close to human pH. So that's how you test your bars. If this paper had turned blue or purple, we would know that there's a lot of lye. Lye is a very strong base, so it would show up over here. But once you get your pH papers to turn olive green, you know you're right in the right spot. If you follow these 8 tips for handling lye safely, you are going to have a great experience. Your first experience with lye or with soap making, it's going to be a lot of fun. And you know that you're going to be you can be confident in it because you know you're handling the lye in a safe manner. The one more tip that you get just for free here at the end is the best way to get confident with working with lye is you're going to need to practice. So get yourself a good recipe, jump in and just give it a try. You know, take all the precautions, make sure that you are doing all the things we've talked about here in this video, but give it a try, practice doing this process, and before you know it, you will be having a great time with your soap making. If you'd like to get additional soap making tips from us, we would love to stay in contact with you. The link to our soap making interest email list is in the description of this video. Just click that link, sign up to join our list, and we would love to send you 1 email a week with additional soap making tips and opportunities and things to help you grow your soap making skills. I'd love to see you there. In our next video, we'll bring all of this together as we make a batch of goat milk soap together. I'll show you the procedure we use here all the time at Big Red Barn using frozen goat milk to help keep the lye under control and really simplify the process. So I'll see you in that video.